Welcome to the Hawthorn Cottage Craft podcast. This is episode 41. Today is Friday the 22nd of January 2021. I'm Kate. You can find me on Instagram as Kate_Hawthorn Cottage Craft, on Ravelry as a runner bean, and we have a Ravelry group for the podcast called Hawthorn Cottage Craft Podcast. In there are threads for chat and knit along news. Any show notes will not be in the Ravelry group. They will be in the description box below this video, and any links to anything I'm wearing, anything I'm knitting, anything really I talk about, there will be links in the description box there. And if there are any things that I miss out, please feel free to drop me a message and I'll hopefully be able to answer your query. You're very welcome if you're here for the first time. It is lovely to see you, and I hope you feel part of our little community here. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe and pass the word along about our podcast. It's all about the knitting here and crafting generally, but mainly knitting. If you are a returning viewer, it is lovely to see you back. You're very welcome. It's always a joy to have your company. I hope you all have a cuppa. I have my coffee. I think I need it because this has taken about 950 of trying to start this. I need caffeine today, but I hope you enjoy what we're talking about today. First thing I want to talk about are the knit-alongs that we're running in the podcast. We have 2 on the go at the moment. We're very, very busy. The first one is the Lucky Dip Cowl, and it has been so much fun to watch everyone get involved. I think it has struck a chord because we're very much as knitters probably all in the same boat, particularly when we started knitting. We bought a lot of random skeins. We were blown away by the pretty colours, and we would buy a skein of this and a skein of that with no real purpose for them in mind. We just liked them. So I have a shelf up here that has a lot of random skeins. Mine are nearly all fingering weight. But the idea of the Lucky Dip Cowl is to use some of those. So what I did was I asked you to pick out 12 skeins or get somebody else to pick out 12 skeins from your stash, up to 12 skeins. Some of you may not want to be involved every month, and that is fine. But if it was to pick 12 skeins, they were to be no more than 100 grams. So basically one skein, or if you had 2 50-gram skeins, that was okay. Some of the sock yarns, I have some Knit Picks Felice, and they come in 50-gram balls. So that was okay. You put them into a little bag or put them all into one bag and just randomly picked. I put mine into little paper bags and into a basket. They're sealed. I don't know now what's going to come out each month. I think some people did it better than I did. I picked my 12 skeins myself, so I know roughly what's in those bags, but I don't know what order I'm going to pull them in. Other people did it in a much more fun way. They got somebody else to pick them out and put them away, so they really don't know what they're going to get. It can be fingering weight, lace weight, double knit, Aran, worsted weight, sport weight, whatever, as long as it's no more than 100 grams. So you can knit hats, mitts, socks. Mine will probably be predominantly socks. Anything that takes up to 100 grams. There's a finished object thread in the Ravelry group, and there's a chatter thread. I think I have left it that you can't comment on the finished object thread. We're all wanting to comment on each other's pictures. They're beautiful, but it makes it easier at the end to draw for prizes if there's no chatter in there. So any chat you want to do or talking about each other's projects, please do that in the chatter thread. There will be a prize drawn at the end of each quarter. So the first one will be at the end of March, and at the end of the year on the 31st of December, as the Cowl comes to a close, there'll be a grand prize drawn from the entire year. So each quarter there'll be a prize drawn just for that quarter, and as I said, then there'll be a general one at the end. It means that you have up to 3 chances per quarter if you do one a month. So you have 1 entry per month. You have a chance of 3 to be in the prize draw, and prizes drawn from that, and I have a few prizes already which are lovely. So that's the Lucky Dip Cowl, and you'll see my progress on that a little later. The other one is the Knitting the Books Cowl, and again it's to use what we have. I have a shelf of books. I can never do this. A shelf of books. When we get the books, I have earmarked all the patterns I want to knit, and then I get distracted by something else and I don't very often knit out of them. I've knit a few things from the books I have. But the aim of this was to use some of those patterns. We all have Ravelry queues and there are beautiful patterns in those, and maybe that can be another knit along at some other point, knitting the Ravelry queue. But for this one, it's from your hard copy books, your ebooks, or magazines if you happen to have them that you've kept over time that there's a pattern in that you want to use. Obviously, there are some patterns that are in your Ravelry queue that are also in the hard copy book that you have, but you need to have the book. That's about the only rule that there is. You need to have the actual book in ebook form or hard copy. When you're putting your finished object photographs into the finished object thread, please put a picture of the book as well with that so that we can see what book it's from, and it gives the rest of us ideas that in the future we might want to purchase or partake in. So this one runs until the end of March. There had been a question about whether it could go on. We'll see at the end of March how we're getting on and what people feel at that point, but certainly the main closing point will be the 31st of March, and there will be prizes for that. On the subject of prizes, if you are a maker, project bags, maybe a yarn dyer, maybe you make pins, stitch markers, anything that's fibre related, or you're a designer who has patterns that you want to promote, I would be more than happy to promote them here. If you want to offer them up as prizes for any of the knit alongs that we do or any of the giveaways that we do, I'm more than happy to do that. If you're interested, please send me a message on Ravelry or Instagram. Those are the best places to get me. So, what have I been working on? The first thing that I have been working on has been my socks. I got confused there because I was going to talk about my finished objects first and I had to find the thing in my notes. Anyway, the first thing I've been working on, as we're doing it in this order now, are my socks as part of my Lucky Dip Cowl. I pulled out this yarn. This was my first one. And this yarn is Townhouse Yarns. And Jenny is the dyer behind Townhouse Yarns. And it's based, and this is Knit, the absolutely beautiful yarn shop in Dublin, which I'm missing. It's been such a long time since I've been there. And this is Jenny's Clarendon sock base. This is Deep Stash. I've had this for quite a long time and I was really excited when it actually got pulled as the first one. I've called these socks my 80s throwback because it's predominantly a dark colour, but there are these flashes of different almost neon colours through it. So to me they're 80s throwback. The colourway is actually called dark blue flash dance, so that makes me think of the 1980s as well. The yarn, I think I said there, was her Clarendon sock base. It's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon. And actually as I knit it, I thought it would be softer because of the cashmere element, but it has quite a cottony feel. But I've one of them done. This is the first one. I cast it on the 1st of January at the start of the cowl. And I've just worked at it each day. This is my morning sock knitting. So this is the first one. And I just love those pops of colour. I wasn't quite sure how they were going to come up when I was knitting them. I wasn't sure if it would be bands, but it's just these little mini stripes. I actually hadn't noticed how it worked there. So I'm really, really thrilled with these so far. The contrast colour actually is yarn. I have a little bag of kind of the ends of balls of yarn that I've used in other projects that I can use for heels and toes and maybe sometimes cuffs. I just did the heel and toe with the contrast this time. And this is from Dublin Dye. So they're a very Dublin pair of socks from Dublin Dye. And it was a blue that I used in my Amulet shawl by Helen Stewart a few years ago now. I'll link to that in the show notes as well. But it's just this beautiful shade of blue. And it worked in really well because that blue is in the little stripes. So as per usual, it's a 64 stitch cast on. It's a vanilla sock this time. I didn't put any pattern into it. It's a 2x2 rib that I knit for 20 rows. I actually did a full 20 this time. I usually get fed up and do 15 because I don't like doing the rib. But it's just a plain 2x2 rib. It's a vanilla sock. I have put the recipe that I use in the notes in my Ravelry project. I have actually a Ravelry project page for these. Go me. It's very rare. But I've put basically how I knit my sock. So I've my 2x2 rib for 20 rows. The length of the sock that I like is about 45 rows, and then I put in a slip stitch heel and then the gusset, and I put the heel in with the contrast colour. When I've completed the gusset, for my length of foot, I'm a UK 4, which is a European 37. I don't know what that is in the States. I knit 43 rows for the foot, and then I put in a rounded toe, just a classic rounded toe. And all those, if you're wondering what pattern I've used, go and check that out. The link is in the description box and you'll see it all written out there. And I've written out the pattern I use for these in there. So I use a 2.5mm, it's my standard sock needle, a 2.5mm, which is a US 1.5. I do all my socks in that. I have a really broad foot, and a 2.25 just makes it too tight. So I have the second one on, and I'm just starting down the leg of the rib finished, and I'm a few rows into the leg. I usually work, as I say, at that in the morning. I get about half an hour or 3/4 of an hour when I'm having my breakfast, when I'm up nice and early. In the mornings I don't get up as early, I don't get the same knitting time. I don't feel my day has started properly. So that is my Lucky Dip Cowl for January. Hopefully we have another week of January left, so I really, really hope I'll have these finished. I would love to be on track for the first couple of months. I can see 1 month running into another as the year goes on, but hopefully we'll stay on track and have a completed object at the end of each month. So that is the first work in progress. The second work in progress is for the Knitting the Books Cowl. I'm housing this in this beautiful antler and acorn bag that my family bought me for Christmas. The Knitting the Books Cowl, the book that I chose was this book, Matter, Anthology number 1, and it's all patterns by Carrie Bostic Hogue. And I had already actually knit, I realised I'd knit one pattern out of it before. I can't even remember now which. It was the Sabella sweater I'd knit. So I decided this time I would knit the Imogen t-shirt, the Imogen tee, which is this one, and it's actually in a similar colour. So this is my entry for the Imogen tee. What I did do, because I scroll all over my patterns, is I did scan the pattern, and it means that I can, as you can see, I write all over it and count rows all over it. So I did that and I got started. I haven't got very far because well, I think everybody has had maybe a slightly stressful start to 2021. There's been a few things going on here between, well, with the pandemic, and we're all in lockdown, and there's homeschooling going on, which I have to say I get away very lightly with. My son is 16, he's a very independent worker and he gets on with it himself, but there's been a lot of debate about whether their exams would go on at the end of the year. He has his big exams this year and they got cancelled, but there was a lot of stress and trauma, so this pattern wasn't necessarily, to make a long story short, this pattern wasn't really the one to work out when I was tense and couldn't concentrate. But I love this pattern. I got it cast on, and as you can see, obviously I haven't got very far. I'll tell you about the wool that I'm using first. It's this beautiful colour. I can show you it better in the cake. My ball winder had died when I was doing this one, and when I got a new one I wound up the second cake, so it looks nicer there. So this is Roots and Rain yarn. Donna is an Ottawa dyer, natural dyer, and it's a sport weight. It's 100% wool, Rideau Arcot and Suffolk North Country Cheviot, and it's a singles, and it was dyed with black walnut lac and cochineal, and it's given this beautiful, beautiful pink shade. And this was given to me last year at the Ullen Knit Retreat by 2 Ottawa ladies who came over and know that I love Donna's yarn. So that's what I'm knitting this in. As I said, it's very similar to the colour actually in the pattern. It's knit in the round, as you can see, bottom up. And I started this and had the rib done, which isn't particularly long. It's only a few rows, and it just started into the lace and realised that I had twisted it in the join, and I had checked, double checked, triple checked. I always do. I'm paranoid about twisting it, and I had twisted it. So I had a lovely Mobius cowl and had to rip it back and restart, but we got it started. It's, as I say, knit in the round, bottom up. It's mainly stocking stitch. The back of it's stocking stitch, and there's just a central panel of lace. If you can see that. I'm not sure how well you can see it. Lace doesn't always show up particularly well until it's blocked. So it's not a particularly wide panel. It goes up the entire front of the project. It's straightforward, but it is lace knitting, and I need a lot of concentration for lace knitting. I'm not a particularly confident lace knitter, but I think it's more a case of I'm not a particularly confident lace frogger. So I'm paranoid about making a mistake. So I can knit round this beautiful stocking stitch and I'm chittering away, and I can look about me and I can chat to the family and watch TV, and we're usually in mid-conversation. And it's stop, I'm at the start of the lace, and I count out the stitches and the stitch pattern. I say it out loud as I go across the panel, which is only something like 36 stitches. And then I go, okay, we can start again, and then I can knit on round. And that happens with every row because I'm scared stiff of making a mistake. So what I think I am going to start to do is every maybe 10 rows, put in a lifeline, just so that I'm doubly sure. I'm the person who will go to every length to make sure that I don't have an issue if I have to rip back, because if I had to start ripping back lace, I would have to go right to the bottom, and I really don't want to do that. But it's coming along nicely. It isn't, as I said, a difficult lace pattern, but I do need to concentrate on it. You can just about see it. It'll look better. I think you'll see it more as I go further up. I'm knitting this on a 3.75mm, which is a US 5. And I hope to get quite far up. The other work in progress that I'm going to show you has kind of taken up my time because it was an easy, not really having to concentrate on too much knit, and it was just right for the last couple of weeks. But hopefully now I'll get working on this, and it is a t-shirt. It really shouldn't take long to get through. So that is my Knitting the Books KAL for the start. Anyway, I hope maybe I will get another one in before the end of the knit along. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to put these on the floor, and then I might have more room. The other work in progress, I just love this. I cannot wait till it's finished, and we're nearly there. We're nearly there. Last year I knit the Felix sweater by Amy Christophers, who is Savoury Knitting on Instagram. And the Felix sweater was a very popular pattern. I knit mine in the sleeve league colourway of Adele McBride's Iron Weight natural Donegal yarn, and it's beautiful and I wear it a lot. I'll insert a photograph of it here. So I liked it so much that I was very fortunate because Adele sent me some more yarn to try out, and there was enough. There's actually slightly more. I'm going to hopefully knit a hat with it too, the leftovers, but there was more than enough to knit the Felix cardigan. So I got it cast on. I'm using this. I'll tell you about the yarn first. Again, it's Adele McBride, who is Knitfield Ireland, and I link this in the description box below. And this yarn is divine. It's iron weight and it's called Mohair Knitfield. It's a mix of 70% merino, which was spun and locally dyed in Donegal, and 30% mohair. So there's just a real softness to it. This is the emerald colourway, and it is in her shop. Sorry, I was going to sneeze. Just passed. It's iron weight and it is so soft and drapey when it is being knit. And I am really far on now. I can see the end. I have the body finished completely, and last night I finished the second sleeve. So the sleeves are complete. Oops. The sleeves are complete. I mean, it has the heft, for want of a better word, of iron weight and real woolly iron weight Donegal wool, but because of the mohair, it is also soft and it's merino, and I don't think this is itchy wool. Now, to be fair, it's a cardigan like this. I'll probably have at least something that covers some of my arm underneath it, but I don't think it's going to be itchy anyway. But that's personal thresholds. It's whatever suits you. The body is quite cropped. But not too cropped. I don't like it too cropped. And it has the Felix pattern that was in my sweater. And I have just picked up, that's why they're banging about, I've just picked up the stitches for the button bands. I have the 2 bands to do and the neckline, and then put on buttons, and I'm finished. But the drape of this is beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to wearing it. It's my shade of green. Love this green. And it's whizzing through. It's knit on, the body of it's knit on a 6mm, which is a US 10, and the cuffs and the band at the bottom and the button bands collar are all knit in a US 5, no, a 5mm, sorry, which is a US 8. And it's been lovely because I've been able to just knit and not really think about it, probably because I've knit the pattern before in another form by knitting the sweater. But I'm really pleased with this, and I'm hoping to get it finished maybe over the weekend now. I'm waiting on buttons to arrive from the textile garden for it, and then it'll be all finished. It's my birthday next week, and I'm hoping to wear it for my birthday. And I also want to get it finished because I'm going to put it into, I'm a Patreon of Chelsea Makes, part of Legacy Fibre Arts, and she has a make-along called Frog or Finish Mal. So it's anything that you're making that you get it finished. So I think I might enter it into that. I don't usually enter knit-alongs, but other knit-alongs have trouble enough keeping up with my own, but I thought I would add that in. So I'm really, really pleased with how this is progressing. I just love this design. It is so simple. I probably will knit another sweater. I can see another sweater of this in my future in a different colour. So I've got grey, I've got green. Who knows what the next one will be. So that's it, Dial McBride's yarn, and it really is worth going to have a look at. Her colours are gorgeous, and for an iron weight Donegal yarn, it's really soft. So that, as I said, those are the works in progress. And I'll now go on to the finished objects and go back in my notes to find them. I have one finished object to show you, and I have a photograph of one that is really not a finished object that would have been in my comfort zone, but I'll talk about it in a moment. If you followed me through Vlogmas, and in the last episode I discussed my round and round cowl, and I have this finished. This is a pattern, the round and round cowl by Kay Litton, who is the Crazy Sock Lady and is Crazy Sock Lady Designs. And I'm really, really pleased with how this has turned out. I will put it on. It's really deep, but it scrunches up nicely. Let me see. So it scrunches up really nicely so that when I have my jacket on, my outdoor coat, it comes up and keeps my neck really toasty. I can bring it up a bit more too if I want. You could even almost do that too if it was really cold. So I'm really pleased with how this finished up, and I'd thought when I'd finished it, it was going to be quite even narrower, but with blocking, it is just sitting really nicely. The yarn that I used was Dragon Hoard yarn, her Narnia set. It was a mini set. It was 5 20-gram skeins. I used about 93 grams, so I used most of it. I think I have a 5-gram ball left of the brown, which I think was Tea with Tumnus, that I can put into my Cozy Memories blanket. So Dragon Hoard yarn, it was her Sprite sock base, which was 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon and 5% gold stellina. There's a wee gold sheen off it, which it never seems to come up on the camera. I knit this on a 3.5mm needle, which is a US 4. So finally finished, and although it was a Christmas knit and there's sparkle in it, it doesn't feel like a particularly Christmas project, so I can wear this now at this time of year as well, and I'm very happy with it. So that was one final finished object. The other finished object I don't have here. It has been given to the recipient, but I will insert a photograph of it. And you can see why this isn't my comfort zone. It's a baby knit, and I don't knit for babies. I've never knit for babies. I have started projects for babies and ripped them out. I started projects for my own babies years ago and ripped them out. I don't know what it is about baby knits, but I have no patience with them. I can happily sit and knit an adult garment, but not a baby knit. But this was special in that it was for the grandchild of a colleague of my daughter's, who this particular colleague of my daughter has been really good to her and is very excited about this new grandchild. And she had, if you notice in the photograph, there's a little crochet hat. She had a white version of this, and she wanted, they know it's going to be a little girl, and she wanted to surprise her daughter with a pink version. Now, I'm knitting crocheting the Cozy Memories. It's the Attic 24 granny stripe blanket, and I can crochet blankets and things, but I don't really like crocheting things that have a lot of shape or shaping. But she was really keen to get this hat. She sent it to me to see if I could replicate it, which I think I've been able to do. So I did that, and then I knit just a little ordinary hat. I went back into my comfort zone of knitting and knit a little newborn, just a basic hat, and put a bauble on it. And the yarn that I used, she wanted something that was really easy care, so I got this. I think it was only about £2. It was Super Soft Iron by GMC Brett. It's 100% acrylic, so they can throw it in the washing machine. Nothing much more to say about it. It'll be a robust little hat, and they are thrilled with it. And I've also started to clear out the craft room here and found some yarn that Amy herself had actually had years ago. She had tried knitting for a little while, and she'd knit a little baby blanket for friends of ours who had a little baby girl. But there was a lot of the yarn left over, and it was this Rico baby cotton. And I'll probably give what is left over of it now, because there's still a few balls of it into charity or something. But I thought I would use some of it up. And I knit the Verde cardigan by You Knit Toronto. And that's a free download, and I'll link that below on Ravelry. And it's a really pretty little pattern and a very quick little knit. It's a yoked cardigan, knit top down, and it had the shaping was done by eyelets, by yarn overs, so there was very little, you know, it wasn't a difficult construction at the top, which I didn't want when it was a baby knit. And I think I knit it, and I think I started it last Friday evening, and it had finished by, she of course as soon as Amy found out I was doing it wanted it there and then. But I had it finished by mid-afternoon the next day so she could bring it to work. So this was the main colour, this beige. It was Rico Baby. It's 50% cotton, 50% acrylic. And then it was Rico Baby Merino. There was a little bit of this, it's 100% merino. Baby pink. And I used that for the contrasting stripe at the top and then on the cuffs. I think this is 004, 003 in colours, but they made the little cardigan, and as you saw the photograph there, they got completed and done and sent off. Baby knits, not my thing, but they turned out nicely. So that is the main knitting that I have completed since, and been working on since I last spoke to you at the beginning of January. Another thing I finished, and I'll show you these because I had shown them in their very initial stages during Vlogmas. I had got from Spoonflower some of their sample pieces of fabric to make masks. When I went into Spoonflower, I put into the search knitting, and all the knitting fabrics, based themed fabrics came up. And I had bought 5 different ones, and 2 of the swatches make one mask. I think before in the autumn I had got some and I bought one, but I swatch per mask, but found that I had to add solid colours to the side. Can't believe we're talking about making masks. So 2 swatches made the front of each mask, and then I used remnants of bits of scraps of fabric that I had in my stash. So I got them, I cut them out, must have been the beginning of December, and finally got to sew them within the last couple of weeks. So this is the first one with the little sheepy. Thought I'd make it all knitting themed. This one has little quotes on it. Knitting is the answer, I don't care what the question is. And if I'm sitting, I'm knitting. It's a bit more subtle. And I can wear these to work when work eventually reopens. Our lockdown has been extended until the beginning of March at least. The stitches, and then as I say, it was just scraps of fabric that I had. The knitting tattoos. And the lining. And then the kitty cats. This is like my kitty, playing with the wool. So those are finished, and I'm glad to have those done. I mean, sewing is the thing I have to be in the mood for, and I'm never really in the mood to sew masks, but they've unfortunately been a necessity. The other project that I finished, and this was one that I was really pleased to get done, last week, I think it was, on Instagram stories, I put up a picture. I have a needle organizer I got years ago that was never particularly good because there was nothing to stop the needles falling out of the top of it. And in that binder, or that case, I had kept any of the fixed circulars, random fixed circulars that I had, and maybe tips or cables from needles that weren't part of a set, so didn't actually have a home, and they were always a tangled mess. I could never find the size I wanted, and you had to spend half a day on knotting all the cables that had got tied in amongst each other. I also had 16-inch circulars that didn't really have a home. They were still sitting in the packets, and they were just a mess, and I'm trying to organise and simplify and make life a bit easier. So what I did was I ordered from, it was Wool Stack, and again I'll link that below. I ordered the Knit Pro case that is for needles and bits and pieces, and that arrived, and I've been able to sort out a lot of my needles. It came with inserts. I bought extra because I knew there wouldn't be enough, and I now have my needles organised. I have the size written on, so that's a 2.25 and it's a 40-inch cable, and any of the needles that I have slipped in there. But what I did find, although I love this, and I mean there's space for other things to be stored, but I don't think its capacity is actually that big. Now I know I have a lot of random needles, and it might be better if it was for tips. I have the Knit Pro Symphonies that I bought just gradually. I didn't buy a full set. I bought them just here and there, and maybe for tips and cables it would be enough, but when I was putting in the random needles I had, I found there wasn't enough room. I had bought more of the inserts, but when I put them in, this wouldn't close. But I really didn't want to buy another one of these. One of them was quite enough, and I found a little binder I had. It was just a little ring binder. I think it came from my husband's work. It had a course handbook in it at one point, and I used to use this. There was a whole thing years ago. I had a blog and everybody was into home management binders, and I kept a home management binder in this, but that went by the wayside a long time ago. But I just put a different cover on it, stuck some stickers on it so we would know what it was, and I put the overflow in here. My 16-inch circulars are in here. There's a couple of spare inserts, and I've them all labelled, so they all should be easy to find. Some of the bigger needles, chunkier needles. So I am really pleased that those are organised. Obviously I got this and it's lovely, but if I had had another one of these and put two together, it would have been, I could have bought the inserts separately and done it like that. But I have the link to this in the description box, and it is really good, and now the two of them can sit up. I like needles. Some people have asked me what needles I like best, and maybe I'll do a little mini episode on my needles because I do like needles, and the basket that's there has the different sets that I have, and now these can sit up with it too and keep all the needles together and tidy. And I can talk about needles that I like in another little episode. So I think that is the most of the content today. You'll be glad to hear. The next episode will be in a couple of weeks, and over Christmas we had a huge milestone in the podcast, huge milestone for me, and we are also coming up on the 4-year anniversary of the podcast. I can't believe that. At the end of next week actually. So there's going to be an exciting giveaway on the next episode. Some of the local yarn dyers here have been very kind in donating prizes, and we're going to do a huge giveaway just for me to thank you for joining me on this journey. It has been hit and miss at times with my uploading, but I've really appreciated the community that has arisen here, and I want to celebrate that. And thank you for subscribing and for coming along with me. So tune in the next time. Please feel free to like and subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Hit the wee bell and then you'll know when the next episode comes up. It'll notify you, and it just lets other people know about what's going on. But until then, I hope that you have a lovely couple of weeks and that you can keep knitting and that you stay safe.